So we've talked about this a few times on the channel with Visions of Mana and the flop or the sales disappointment that's happening with this game. And I wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up to the video that I did talking about no Switch port does tank the sales in Japan, because we are getting a little bit of an update when it comes to how this game is performing in the West. Now, we have no raw sales data at this point, so I do want to reiterate or go over again what happened in Japan. Then we'll go over some of the data that I have found to show that this game is kind of flopping worldwide overall. But before we get into all that, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my Nintendo Switch and RPG videos first. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So if you look at it, Visions of Mana in Japan, it sold around 40,000 units. That is well less than the 150,000 units plus 4 years ago in Japan that Trials of Mana on the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 4 sold. Even if you exclude the Switch with Trials of Mana back in 2020 with the sales, just on the PlayStation 4 alone, Trials of Mana sold 80,000 units plus, not including digital. So what we're seeing is a 50% drop from what we saw with a remake 4 years ago with a bigger install base of the PlayStation 4 in addition to the install base of the PlayStation 5. Now, when Square Enix was putting this game together, they talked about how the visuals and the graphics and what they were trying to do was trying to bring the Mana series back for the future. They invested a lot of time, money, and effort into this. This was not some type of small, cheap game to make, the Secret of Mana, PlayStation Vita, and PS4 remake or anything like that. This was a large-scale type of game, and they did spend a lot of time and money with NetEase in addition to Oka Studios getting this done. 40K in Japan for your first week is not what you're looking for, especially when this is a capitalistic business, guys. This isn't something to where you want to just break even. You want to have ROI, return on investment. Now, if you look at it, that's just Japan. We don't have digital numbers, but as you guys know, physical's usually the bigger sales factor with a lot of these big RPGs in Japan. So I'm guessing digital-wise wasn't much higher based off of what we're seeing. Now, another thing that we have to note here, if you're looking at it from the Western sales, I did pull up the Amazon sales. Definitely behind on the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4, not doing the best at all. A lot of games are in front of it on the overall charts. On the Amazon PS5 charts only, a number of games are in front of it, and on the Xbox charts, it's even worse overall. I mean, it is just getting obliterated. I think it's 50 or something like that on the Xbox Amazon charts physical, so it's just selling terrible when it comes to games. And then if you go on the top downloads or the top play charts on the digital side for Xbox, it's nowhere in the top 51. It's just getting blown out. So I think that was the issue that some people saw and was wondering, hey, is this going to be Game Pass? Is this going to be Game Pass? Because we don't think people are going to buy it on the Xbox, or it's not going to do well. People aren't going to play it for $60, you know, if there's a bunch of other games that's coming out. Obviously, people are playing like all of the live service games that are on Xbox. You have Call of Duty, you have all different type of things, Fortnite and all of that. But even stuff like college football and Madden and NBA 2K, all of those games are kind of dominating the charts right now at this point, along with the GTAs and all the stuff that usually does well on the Xbox platform. And to make things even worse, Visions of Mana actually opened up to its second worst debut ever in franchise history. So it seems like while they did try when it comes to getting different marketing with the Game Awards and with the Xbox Developer Direct, I think that there was a couple things, like I stated in my video before, that was fatal flaws with this from just a starting point, with not having the Switch as the base platform that you have to look at first and foremost, then take that and say, hey, how can we make it better? What can we do in order to make the graphics better or whatever for PlayStation and Xbox? And I get that can be a little bit, I would say, difficult to do. I'm pretty sure that the Atelier Yumiya devs have had some issues with that, but that's what they're doing to ensure that you have that massive 100 million plus, 140 million plus install base that can have access to your game. And that, of course, when it comes to Japanese RPGs, has been one of the best, if not the best seller of these, not the highest in terms of AAA budget JRPGs, but definitely been one of the best in terms of JRPGs overall with these sales. What can Square Enix do? This video is going to be looking at what can Square Enix do to save Visions of Mana. Well, the developers who made the game, Oka Studios, they're pretty much not saved because NetEase has essentially let them go. But you guys got to remember, NetEase owns Oka Studios. They let them go. Square Enix is the publisher and IP owner. In addition to having their own developers that helped NetEase work on this game, that was a collaborative effort. So Square Enix has that source code. They have the IP. They own it. So they can do what they want with it. So there's a number of things that they can do in order to potentially save the franchise of Mana and save Visions of Mana. So here's what I would do. I would definitely get some people together overall when it comes to who's worked on the Mana series, put together a team to start working on potentially some updates or some patches for Visions of Mana. But I think that the big thing that you need to do is that you need to put the team together and potentially have, if you can, get a Switch version. But I think at this point, not sure if they can get that done, but the game is on the PlayStation 4. So I think that a Switch port, I know it'd be late and Switch 2's coming, and we don't know if that's going to be on the next system, but that's just one option that you do have. Now, another option is something that I suggested on Twitter, is to where they say, okay, kind of bide their time. They get some of the developers that worked on it that were let go, hire them onto your team, have a small staff of people that worked on the game, start working on some pretty substantial updates to the game to improve a lot of the criticism from the reviews, to improve it. Think Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. Remember the situation that happened with that game on the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Nintendo 3DS? 3DS version never made it out of Japan, but the PlayStation 4 version was the worldwide version that people were playing most places, and that game actually wasn't ported over to the Nintendo Switch. What they did is they took an actual recreated version in Unreal Engine 4 for the Nintendo Switch and put that out 2 years later in 2019 to great success. And then they later took that version with the updates and ported it over to Xbox and PlayStation, which is why the original base PS4 version looks a bit better than even the Xbox Series or the PlayStation 5 or whatever other system you're playing it on, like the S version of the game, because it's the Switch source code, Switch version of that game. But they had so much success with that. It sold incredibly well. Now, of course, Mana is not Dragon Quest, and I'm not expecting anywhere near that, but what you can do is you could potentially save it with a Visions of Mana definitive edition of the game, and then you combo that up with a definitive edition of the game on the Nintendo Switch 2. I think right there, that gets you a lot more sales than what you got beforehand. Now, Square Enix might think that this is all for naught. There's no reason to do any of this. There's no point. It failed, or it's failing, or it's not doing so well, so we don't need to do all of this. But I do feel that they worked so hard on this. If they were to give up at this point, that would just be sad, because they built this over the course of what, 4 years, 5 years, starting with the collection of Mana that came out in Japan first, and people were begging for it. People were asking for it. Square Enix was like, keep on asking for it. We finally got it. It was E3. It was super hyped to see that it was coming out. And then Trials of Mana, that was the announcement that blew away the Mana and JRPG community, and we all rallied and purchased the game, and it sold over 1.3 million. It's kind of heartbreaking at this point to see it come down to this, where a mistake. I think that it was just a mistake in terms of how they decided to plan this game and not having it on Switch. I think, once again, hindsight is 2020, but it was a big mistake. But I do feel that it's salvageable. And as someone who's a huge fan of the Mana series, guys, I've been playing this for 30 plus years. That's why I keep on making videos on it. That's why I'm passionate about it. And that's why I want to see if there's anything they can do to kind of fix the situation. I mean, we haven't really had anything like this before when it comes down to it. The path of Mana has been so crazy. Heck, that might be a name for the next game. Check that out, Square Enix Path of Mana. But like, I think that the path for the Mana series has been nuts, and it would be such a bummer if it was to end and we don't get another game in the next 15, 20 years or something like that. Like, it took forever to get a new game in the series. I mean, if you don't count Trials of Mana, the last one was so long ago. So I do feel that these are the different type of things that they can do to kind of salvage the situation at hand. And if they do those, maybe, just maybe, we can still get more Mana in the future. Now, for those who have not played the game or haven't tried it out, I do want to say this: it's awesome. There is a demo. It's not the best RPG out there. I still feel that there's a number of RPGs that came out this year that are better than it. Stuff like Unicorn Overlord, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Vengeance, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth for some people out there. So there's a number of RPGs that came out this year that are better than it, and there's more that are coming out that are probably going to be better than it as well. But I do feel that it's still pretty good, and maybe if you look at the holiday sales, we can get some discounts going for the PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4 versions, Xbox versions. Maybe we get the Black Friday Wario 64 Upside Down special for $29.99. I think that would be a huge boost. I think a lot of people saw this, and the fact that Mana is not necessarily really big on Xbox and PlayStation and PC, they saw the game was like $60 for that when all of X, Y, and Z are coming out later. Nah, I'm good. Astrobot's coming and all that. Nah, I'm good. I'm not buying that. So I think that's really what happened to it. But I do feel that if it's $29.99 or $39.99, that's definitely going to boost things up quite a bit. Now, it's a little bit different with the demo, because the demo, you can play that, but some people play the demo and like maybe canceled their pre-order. I heard that a little bit online, and some people played the demo and said, okay, I'm gonna buy the game now. But some people were just like, I'm kind of meh on it. I'll wait till a discount, right? So it was kind of all over the place. You look at the reviews. I did do a review roundup, high 70s, which is good, but a lot of people aren't going to rush out for a JRPG on Xbox and PlayStation and PC in that rating category. If it was like, let's say mid 80s or higher 80s, or heck, even 90s, that would have been perfect if it somehow was able to get that high of a score. But we knew that it wasn't going to do that. The Mana series doesn't review that high. But yeah, it would have been awesome, and I think that would have definitely helped. So when you have a game that's kind of looking like a 70 average or so, or in the 70s average, and it's full price, and it's not on the platform where most people know it from or gonna buy it, and you don't have that Nintendo Direct marketing boost, which I talked about how the marketing to me wasn't necessarily the right spots to put it, even though you had a lot of viewers watching. But that's not the audience that's into your type of game. I do feel that there's a number of things that went wrong with Visions of Mana, but I did lay out a number of things and situations here that they can do to potentially save Visions of Mana and the future of it. But I would hope that Square Enix would look at this and say, we're not going to give up. I mean, they've had other games that have came out and flopped, or they've had other games that maybe didn't do as well, but they've had some flops. They had Forspoken, they had Babylon's Fall, they've had some stuff that was pretty bad, and yeah, we knew what happened to those games. They got shut down, the studios got closed. Now NetEase with this game got closed. They don't own them, but they got closed as well. That was Platinum Games with the Babylon's Fall, but that was Square Enix's mismanagement of that. People were not expecting or wanting Platinum Games to do a live service co-op multiplayer game. They want it to be a Platinum Games action adventure, action single player titles. So that failed for that. So there's always been these different circumstances, but really Visions of Mana didn't have some of the stuff that we saw with Forspoken, or some of the stuff that we saw there. It was just seems like it was unfortunate in terms of the planning for the game and what they wanted to do from a base level overall. I really think that they thought that they can clout up off of selling so many copies of Collection of Mana and Trials of Mana, and it ended up just backfiring spectacularly at this point. But I still feel that it can be salvaged. I think that there's a future for the Mana series, but Square has to act. Now, one thing that's a possibility too is that they just take their L with this one. We're going to put together a different team that can build a great Mana game, and we'll try it again, and maybe we'll do it in the next couple years, or whatever the case is, next few years. They're going to let this one stew a bit, but I still feel that a definitive version on Switch and Switch 2 launching, or dual launching with them next year or the year after or something, whenever you can get that done and you put it at a good price, don't put it at full price right away. I think that could be something to where it breeds some life into it, but once again, we just don't know. I mean, that could also fail too at this point. Overall, we don't know what else is going to be out around that time when they could even get that done. And with Oka Studios closing, who are they going to get when it comes to a port studio? This stuff would have to be large scale logistics, really trying to nail down what they can even do. So I'm not even sure how they'd go about it, but those are my thoughts on what they can do to save Visions of Mana. And once again, it's tough to see because I think the game is very good and I see people playing it and it's a lot of fun. I played it myself, it's fun and everything. And to see it flop like this after so much anticipation and what happened and how we finally got it back after all of these decades, after a decade plus, we finally got Mana back. To see it kind of go out like this, or if it does go out like this, is very sad. But you never know, things might turn around here, but just not sure. But what are your thoughts on this, guys, when it comes to Visions of Mana? What are the things that you would do to help save this game in addition to the franchise potentially? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch and RPG videos right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.